get to the White House. So members, please take notice. On nominations, before we reach the conclusion of the June work period, the Senate will confirm yet another one of President Biden's highly qualified nominees to the federal bench, Candace Jackson Akawumi, to serve on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. A graduate of Princeton and Yale Law School, Ms. Jackson Akawumi left a career at a big law firm to work 10 years as a federal defender in Illinois. She was a voice in the courtroom for Americans who often had no one else to speak for them, the mentally ill, folks who could not afford an attorney. We have plenty of prosecutors and corporate lawyers on the bench. Ms. Jackson Akawumi would bring a sorely needed perspective. The more our courts reflect the country as a whole, the more faith Americans will have in the equal application of the law. Ms. Jackson Akawumi will make an outstanding addition to the Seventh Circuit, and I urge all my colleagues to vote for her later today. Now, I want to reflect for a moment on the pace of judicial nominations in the Democratic-led Senate so far this year. Typically, the first several months of a new administration don't feature a ton of judicial nominations. New presidents often have ambitious legislative agendas, and it takes a lot of time for a new president to make appointments and get them to go through all the background checks, and for the Judiciary Committee to advance nominees to the floor. So, in administrations past, the first 6 months are a fallow period for judges. For all the focus that the Republican leader put on judges during the previous administration, the Senate only confirmed one district or circuit judge before July 4th in the first year of Donald Trump's presidency. By the end of today, the Senate will have confirmed more judges this week than in all 6 months of Donald Trump's first year in office. In fact, with the confirmations this week, the Senate will have confirmed more district and circuit court judges to the federal bench in the first 6 months of President Biden's first year than any other administration in 50 years. Let me say that again so people hear, because I know there's a lot of worry, justified, that President Trump shifted the bench so far to the right that we need to rebalance it, and we need to make that a very high priority. Well, we have. After the confirmation of Ms. Jackson Akawumi, the Senate will have confirmed more district and circuit court judges in the first year of her presidency in over 50 years, including the first 6 months of Donald Trump's presidency. So we're making good progress. And we've done it with judges who break the federal mold. Federal defenders, civil rights lawyers, voting rights lawyers, the first Native American judge, the first Muslim American judge. Those make me proud that we are constantly expanding who in America can get to the bench. All of these folks have one thing in common. They are individuals of impeccable character and impressive credentials. The Democratic Senate is restoring balance to the judiciary with highly qualified mainstream jurists who reflect the diversity of this country. And we're going to keep at it when we come back in July and beyond. On another matter, infrastructure. A nation's economic potential depends on the quality of its infrastructure. Our businesses, workers, farmers, manufacturers, you name it, they all depend on the infrastructure networks that connect our country. And here in the 21st century, electrical grids and broadband internet access are just as important as roads and bridges and highways. But it's been decades since Congress passed a significant standalone bill to increase federal investment in infrastructure. Our roads and bridges are crumbling. Children learn in dilapidated schools. Large swaths of rural America lack access to broadband internet. We need to refashion much of our infrastructure to address the existential threat of climate change. That is so important and essential to the overwhelming majority of my caucus. So the Senate this summer is going to move forward on multiple legislative proposals to make historic investments in our nation's infrastructure. And when we say that, we mean both types of infrastructure, the concrete and steel and that kind of infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, but also the human infrastructure, so that we can maximize the potential of our people, which, after all, is our greatest resource, So we are pursuing on multiple, we are making two tracks. The first legislative track is bipartisan. The second track will incorporate elements of the American Jobs and Families Plan and will be done through the budget process, which must pass even if it is not bipartisan. There has been significant progress this week on both tracks. Yesterday, a bipartisan group of senators announced they had reached an agreement in concept for a bipartisan infrastructure proposal. And I have encouraged them to move forward, but I have made explicit to every one of them, together and separately, that we have to pass both tracks together. Speaker Pelosi and I were made aware of the concepts of the agreement, the bipartisan agreement, last night. And while we have yet to see the details, I'm encouraged by the progress the bipartisan group of senators has made. I've supported these bipartisan discussions from the beginning, and I want to thank my colleagues for their hard work. Senate Democrats have also made significant progress on preparing a budget resolution. These two efforts are tied together. Let me make that clear. The bipartisan infrastructure bill and the budget resolution are tied together. If the Senate is going to move forward with a bipartisan infrastructure bill, we must also move forward on a budget resolution as well. I have discussed this with President Biden directly on several occasions, and he agrees we cannot do one without the other. And he has let the participants know that. Speaker Pelosi agrees that we cannot do one without the other. All parties understand we won't get enough votes to pass either unless we have enough votes to pass both. When the Senate returns in July, it will be time to take the next step and hold the first votes on the bipartisan infrastructure bill on the floor of the Senate. Senators should also be prepared to consider a budget resolution that will clear the way for the budget reconciliation bill as soon as possible. The bottom line is both tracks need to make progress concurrently. This is about building a foundation for the United States to remain the world economic leader in the 21st century. We are the largest economy in the world, but our infrastructure ranks 13th, behind South Korea and Germany and Japan and even the United Arab Emirates. There isn't a community in this country without some glaring infrastructure challenge, certainly my home state of New York. If America is going to prosper in the 21st century, we can't have infrastructure that's stuck in the last century. We need to pass a major investment in infrastructure, both physical and human, this year. And I look forward to holding the first votes when we return for the July work period. I yield the floor. And note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.